Great. Well, hello. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Sealaska Heritage's Fall Lecture Series. Thanks for joining in person or online on our YouTube channel. Today is one of several free lectures over the next 3 months. You can review the full lecture schedule at sealaskaheritage.org. We are committed at Sealaska Heritage to providing accessible community programming, but none of it would be possible without the support of donors. If you would like to contribute, you can contribute online at sealaskaheritage.org/donate or via the contribution envelopes at the chairs in the clan house today. Please silence your cell phones if you're in the audience in person. Today's lecture is titled Voices of the Ancestors, Inquiries Concerning Tlingit Singing at Yakutat in 1791, and is presented by Stephen J. Langdon, Judy Ramos, and Maria Williams. Dr. Langdon is Professor Emeritus of Anthropology at the University of Alaska Anchorage and has conducted numerous research projects on many public policy issues impacting Alaska Natives throughout his career. Ramos is a Ph.D. candidate, completing her doctoral research on seal hunting and the 900-year history relationship with the Hubbard Glacier in Yakutat Bay. Dr. Williams is a Tlingit ethnomusician and is faculty at the University of Alaska Anchorage. They're presenting today on a joint research project regarding Tlingit music recorded in Yakutat Bay in 1791. Thanks for joining. Please welcome our presenters.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. I'd like to first of all thank Dr. Rosita Worl and the Sealaska Heritage Institute for supporting our research on this unique and exciting opportunity. The initiation of this project occurred last year, and we have been working on it in various ways and actually bringing forward materials concurrently. So in 1791, the Spanish explorer, Malaspina, sailed into Yakutat Bay, and he began an encounter with the local Tlingit that lasted for almost a month. And this was a scene here that you see depicted in terms of how he was greeted, how the two vessels, they were two vessels that came, were greeted as the Tlingit came offshore and sang to them at that time. Of course, the Yakutat population, Yakutat Kwan, are located in the Yakutat Bay and nearby surrounding areas. And they have relatives to the west and the east, as well as associations with Eyak, Atna, and Tuchoni people. Accompanying Malaspina as one of his staff was a man named Thaddeus Haenke. And Thaddeus Haenke was a highly trained person of Czech ancestry, who was first of all and primarily a botanist, but was also an excellent musician and a trained musician. And one of the things that he created was sheet music. And in the lecture that I gave last year at this time about early contact, I showed this particular piece. And it turns out that one of the viewers was Lori Hagee, who's with the educational office here of Sealaska Heritage Institute, and she saw that, and she said, "Oh, well, I see there's other sheets of music. Can you find those? Where are those other sheets of music?" So that began my pursuit of the additional sheets of music, which I obtained from the Museo de Americas, ultimately, and brought forward, and that Maria will be talking about that second in terms of our discussion. So here are the two individuals. Now, when Malaspina and Haenke, and when Malaspina was among the Yakutat Kwan, he set up several camps, and at that particular time, the Tlingit were primarily living on Kantak Island. Was the primary village. The little star migrated to the east, but that's where the main village was, and that's where the people would then have spotted the vessel sailing in. Note that Malaspina was not the first European to come. The two British traders, Colnett and Dixon, had shown up in 1788. But so from that particular location then, the Tlingit began to come around and engage and find out and what's going on in the particular area. And you can see in this particular slide in the middle, there is in the back you can see several what are likely seasonal occupations, perhaps similar to those to what we saw in the Tuya Bay in 1786. But the Spaniards in Yakutat Bay also identified the framework for larger structures, which they observed and probably had the boards taken from them and out to the seasonal camps by the clans in the houses. Now, Haenke and Malaspina and other members of the staff, Jesus. Nothing like the pharmacy. Sorry for that. Edit it out, Kai.
This is live stream.
The circumstance then followed. Each of these journals then has various reports about what was observed. And Haenke produced 4 sheets of music we discovered and through what was sent back. But in the accounts, he and others spoke of these occasions, 4 different occasions on which the Tlingit had sung, some of which he converted into the sheet music. The first occasion that identified, and there's a description, but I doubt that their sheet music is for the song being sung coming offshore. And they noted specifically, Haenke, that the harmonious quality of the singing was very specially noted by him as in that particular first encounter. Later on, there was, as the vessels were anchored, they could hear singing on shore on a foggy night. As well by the people. And then on a later occasion, 3 Tlingit women came offshore. I gotta turn this. And 3 of them sang to the vessel as well. Finally, this particular piece of, there was an interesting event, which I'll show momentarily, a disagreement. And this occasion, there was joint singing offshore, followed by this singing onshore, following the settlement of a disagreement. And there was the disagreement occurred, and that when it was resolved, and the Tlingit leader required that the Spaniards come ashore and sing with them. And so there's joint singing, and Haenke wrote this down, and this is one of the songs that's actually called Canto de la Paz, which means Song of Peace. So we know then we can align this particular event with, or song with that particular event. And happy singing was later on reported in the evening by the Spaniards as they listened to the Tlingit after the resolution. So this is what the dispute was over. Somebody had pilfered a coat from the Spaniards, and the Spaniards wanted it back. And so the leader, he looked around until he found who was the culprit, and so then they returned the coat, and that resolved the circumstance. There was another occasion of cultural confrontation, and my interpretation of the event is that when the Spaniards came ashore with their various equipment to look at angles and do sun things, and they had this equipment. And I believe that the Tlingit might have interpreted that as some sort of negative apparatus. And in this particular circumstance, we see which is probably an ixt confronting the Spaniards in that particular occasion. So these are the 4 sheets of music then that were sent to us that ultimately Maria, which you'll hear from shortly, worked with in terms of producing a recreation of the sounds. In her first effort at this circumstance, this is an example of what her first synthesizer music sounded like, and we were all a little bit, I can't see it. Oh, that's great, it won't open the slide, I didn't go and do that. Oh, that's go ahead.
I gotta go back and set up the current slide. I'm trying to do the slideshow from the current slide. I won't go there particularly now. It says illegal living.
No.
But I'd have to go to slideshow. Doesn't want to play it. You got it to play before. Now it won't play.
Try this way.
Sometimes it'll show up at the bottom, a little more. On the left one. Oh, you got them all in here at once. Shouldn't be like that.
Is this the wrong slideshow? So
Should have checked.
there's this one here which should play.
Hoo, way, aha, way, aha.
Because I should have checked. Shouldn't have let it go. Let's get back and finish.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like this one just doesn't have the music on this part.
No, you didn't need it to be hyperlinked into the file. You didn't check it. So never mind. We'll just go on. So now we're going to be able to hear that particular original, and Maria perhaps didn't want you to hear it, but at any rate. But it was a wonderful initial effort. It has a Gregorian quality to it. It's a little, not quite Tlingit to listen to. So this is some other sheet music that was produced by Frederica de Laguna from the recordings of her songs from the recording from Yakutat Tlingit. At this point, what I'm going to do is turn this over to Maria, and I want to get out of the slideshow and bring up her.
I think mine was just past yours.
No, but that's not, I should get out of here so we can go to the bottom. So if I go to home, no, it won't allow me to go down and open yours. Escape. So we're just going to go with this.
Okay, and just go play from the current slide.
Yeah, we'll just go from there.
Maria Shaa Tláa Williams Yuhat Duasak, Yael Nak Hatsati, Deshitan Nak Hatsati, Dekliwedi Yeti Ayahat, Atlain Kwan Ka, Carcross Tagish First Nations Ayahat, Anchich Hachati. My name is Maria Williams. My Tlingit name is Shaa Tláa. I'm of the Raven Moiety and of the Deshitan or the Beaver Clan and a child of the killer whale. My ancestral villages are Atlin in British Columbia and Carcross Tagish, and so I'm an inland Tlingit. And I was so pleased when Lorelei Hagee reached out to me, I think early last spring, saying that she was working with Dr. Langdon on some of this sheet music, and of course this idea of harmony, right, which I so appreciate Dr. Langdon's cultural context of the music and how the transcriptions were made way back in the late 1700s. But it was noted that harmony, complex harmonies were common in other communities of the Northwest Coast. So we know many languages, many commonalities, and one of those, of course, was the use of harmony. And of course, harmony is when you have one note and then you have another note on top of it. So those of you that are musicians, maybe you're hearing a C and then E, G, right? And then everyone's singing together, similar to what you hear in hymns. And so there was a misconception actually that when people, outsiders began to arrive, they thought, oh, well, the Tlingits and Haidas, they must have learned this like from the Russian Orthodox Church. But it's really clear that this was something that was practiced well before contact. So when I was presented these transcriptions initially, I'm not a Yakutat person. I don't have the right to sing these songs. However, I ended up singing a few, and I apologize for breaking those Tlingit protocols. But getting to work, of course, with Judy Ramos, Professor Ramos, who is from that community, allowed me, I think, the ability to present it in a better fashion. So initially I did it with this computer-generated sound, which was like kind of, yeah, Judy's like, look, horrified. You can see her eyebrows go up. And so I thought, well, I'll still do the recorded stuff, but let me look at vocables and do some singing on top of it. So vocables, of course, are the meaningful syllables, right? So like fa la 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 la. Fa and la are not words, but vocables are a very common part of all indigenous music of North America. It's an architectural device. So I think in this example, I'm going to see if I can play it. This was just a single melodic line that Thaddeus Haenke wrote, and I put some vocables to this. See if I can play it. Hoo hoo way ah way ah hoo hoo way ah ha hoo way ah hoo way ah ha ha way ah ha hoo way ah ha ha. So there was no like words that were part of this. There's a few indications of the tempo, tempo giusto or allegro, like fast, or majestico. So these are like rough approximations of what maybe Thaddeus Haenke was trying to capture. So again, we don't really know what it really sounded like. And this was tempo giusto, and I don't see the icon, the music icon for this one, although I did. Oh yeah, I can't see all these bright lights in my eyes here. I think this one is just I'm using a piano, so it's, I can hit the button. Apologies, the icon is sensitive. I guess it doesn't like the synthesized music because I think this one was like a piano, but I wanted you to get a sense of it. You clearly hear that harmonization at the end of it. And as Dr. Langdon was talking about, they had this, kind of conflict over theft. And so this Canto de la Paz was something that brought the groups together. And we all know that in traditional Tlingit society, of course, the peace ceremonies were very important. Repertoires of songs to those were a vital part of it. So this one, I did do the harmony, a couple of tracks. It's just my voice. It ideally should be male and female voices, but. Ah, ah, hey, yay. Ah, hey, hey, yay. Ah, ah, hey, yay. Ah, hey, ah, yay. Ah, hey, So musically, there's a couple of interesting things I want to point out that you don't hear so much in contemporary Tlingit music. Some of these are the pauses, like you hear the la, la, and then the harmony at the chord at the end. So it was a very, very beautiful song. And then I think this is also, they were in British Columbia, now British Columbia, and this is a Nootka or Nuchal Nuth. This one is interesting. I have this on the piano. I'm not going to play it now because it sounds so weird, but it has a percussive voice. For those of you that read music, you see this da 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 da, and then the top is da 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 da, and then the use of harmony. And of course, as I mentioned, the use of harmony was very common in the Northwest coast. La Perouse, a French expedition, came in 1786, and one of his crew member also wrote down this piece, which in it he claims this sounds like our church music from Europe because of the harmony. I'll play just a short excerpt. And Tlingit music is fairly diatonic, meaning, the notes that you hear, you could be played on the piano. Clearly I did that, although it sounds kind of strange. But also things like call and response. And I just want to play this one excerpt, which is actually from the SHI archives. I think it's from the celebration 1988 with Matthew Fred and Goon. It's an entrance song a lot of people sing, but in this you'll hear the use of harmony. I'll just play a short excerpt of it. Or maybe not. Yeah. Do you want to try it, David? So sorry. You have a very sensitive mouse pad. It wants to disappear. Yeah, sometimes I'd just hit in the middle of the bar and then it would play. Yeah, I don't want to take up too much time, but yeah, I'm just going to move forward. So the other example I had, again, this is from a Matthew Fred and Angoon, which is actually a ceremonial song. Again, this from SHI recordings, but I'll play an excerpt, but you'll hear the harmony. This actually has close harmonies if it will play.
The beaver hat dance. The beaver hat dance. Spaghetti.
So beautiful. But in the interest of time, I just wanted to play that as an example that you can hear still, certainly from the early recordings of celebration, the use of harmony. So now we're going to turn it over to Professor Judy.
Thank you very much, Maria. We're going to go and hear from Judy about the... No, it's just going to go through these. You just have to go through these.
I'll go through them.
Yeah, just the way they are. Next one is...
So let me go ahead and go through. So da chutsi chatuasak yech nayachat kashkakwan yachat chutnechati yeti yachat tekwidi dachkan yachat. So thank you for inviting me to speak on behalf of my ancestors. My photo here is my grandfather Olaf Abraham with the Anclan blanket, and my grandmother Susie Abraham. And the Yakutat area, of course, is the Kashkakwan clan in the area that we're talking about. So that would have been my ancestors maybe greeting some of these early explorers for the Yakutat area. So I just wanted to acknowledge we're living, working on the traditional homelands of the Akwan, Tlingit, which also houses the neighborhood Khadas and Shimshian people. So this is a photo of Ocean Cape from Yakutat, just looking out towards the ocean, where in those days you'd have seen sailing ships come sailing in to Yakutat Bay. So I thought I would start out with this a quote about the function and meaning of Tlingit dance and song. So it says here, dance performances were not merely for self-gratification or recreation, but was a ceremonial gift to others, requiring a return dance later in exchange. Dance could mean we were showing gratitude and could simply say we desire good relations. So this whole dance performances were to have good relations between these foreign visitors on these ships that were coming in, that they were encountering. And also that dance was a form of greeting, was preceded by elaborate form of oratory, and was often followed by gift-giving. Dance was lengthy and often signified peaceful intentions. It was accompanied by ensemble singing, so we're focused on the singing, but the whole context of this encounter had a lot of different meanings and purpose behind this encounter, or first encounters. So this is, some of the first, encounters that are, we're talking about La Perouse, Malaspina, Captain George Vancouver, and Baranoff. So this is a early photo of the Yakutat dancers. So the whole protocol that was maybe wanting to highlight, that was the first encounters when you have somebody visiting your land, and this is when they have the canoe journeys, when they have the canoes that land here for celebration. There's a whole set of protocol for encountering visitors to your land. And my dad talked a little bit about it for people coming by canoe or boat, the first question is, who you are, why are you here? Kind of like when you have diplomatic relations, you wanted to ask them, what is your purpose for being here? And to establish that it's a peaceful relations between the people on the boat and you. So once you decided that, you're here either to do trade relations or other purposes, then you do your welcome dance and song, and then your oratory. And anyone who's been at a Tlingit potlatch would learn how long the oratory is. Sometimes you're sitting there for an hour or so just doing the oratory at potlatches. And my dad always emphasized putting eagles down on the water, which signifies the peaceful relations between the visitor and the canoe and yourself. So I wanted to kind of go on and La Perouse's encounter. His description is, before the chief came aboard, he appeared to address a prayer to the sun, and then he made a long harangue, he called it, which is, I said, oratory, which is concluded by kind of a song, by no means disagreeable, and greatly resembling the plain chant of our churches. The Indian in his canoe accompanied him, repeating the same air in chorus. And after this ceremony, they almost all came aboard and danced for an hour to the music of their own voices, on which they are very exact. So that explains the whole procedure. And the ladies in the canoe are pulled alongside one of the first encounter ships with moccasins for trade. So, and we were talking a little bit earlier about the woman that would come out to the first voyagers. So, one of the first songs that I thought about when Maria was doing this was about the first. They called it the Steamboat Song, and so this is when we did this is about 1904 when the first steamboats were coming into the village. My great-grandfather would blow the steamboat, and then this would be followed by the chorus of the singers that would sing the song. But I don't see the music icon.
See, they need to be linked. They're not there.
So the song has two different versions of the song, which is one is the recording of maybe just one of the elders singing the song, and then the second recording was when our whole group performed the song. And so it was really interesting for me to look at this and see the two songs that were there. So maybe after I have it on a flash drive, maybe we could play it, and somehow it's not loaded on there. I don't know. It was playing earlier.
It's not going to play in this one because it's merged. This doesn't
Can you pull up just my presentation instead of this merged one? Oh, there we are. I think once it got merged, it got messed up. Yeah. So the other song here was our group singing it. So you could see by that example that this is one of the ones that I thought kind of related to this project. So one quote I found in the book was a quote out of Potlatch, and they said that when one person starts a song, everyone, the whole tribe is singing, men and women and men. Sometimes the opposite tribe helps first. So I thought that was really, really cool. This very sensitive touchpad. So I thought that was really another fun example. One thing I thought about when I was looking at this was the Potlatch Ban, and then thinking about a lot of our songs and singing kind of went underground, but we still did practice them. And so this is a photo from the 1904 Potlatch and our dancers there. So a lot of the songs were not recorded by De Laguna, but there's the 1954, four of our elders got together and formed the Mount St. Elias Dancers. And so I did have a list of a lot of their traditional dance songs and my photo of my grandfather, who was our song leader. My great uncle talked about how the dancing started to change, and he said when the Yakutat people sing, it's almost like a choir, but you can't teach the young people to sing that way anymore. He said that he could hear the 4 different tunes, he called it, which is the harmonizing. So this is just a look at some of the research that was done, De Laguna's analysis in different categories, and then Morrison, who also did an analysis of the De Laguna songs. So I wanted to mention that for further research. So my reference is, and thank you.
I just want to go back to that PowerPoint, that merged PowerPoint, last comments. Okay. Okay, thanks. I just want to close with a couple of final comments about. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I forgot that. A couple of final comments. Cultural systems create what I call existence spaces. And in existence spaces, create the habitus for the interpretation of the sensorial impressions that we obtain. We obtain these sensorial impressions, and then our cognitive functions interpret them and realign them. And so they become part of our habitus. So some of that habitus can really lead to some very interesting differences of orientation. Now, amongst the Spaniards that came with Malaspina was an artist named Thomas Soria. And as you saw earlier, some of the sketches of the boats and the people and the landscape were all pretty accurate. But then he came upon Northwest Coast art. And these are the distortions of his cultural eye with regard to art. He was unable to accurately represent Northwest Coast art, which is, so I said to myself, what did Haenke hear? Was he hearing similar kinds of things that went through a cultural lens that led to some kind of distortion? So there are a number of possibilities by which this could have occurred. The notational system, the problem with tempo, the tone quality that we're hearing. But it's interesting that De Laguna pointed out that Haenke's problems are the same as those of the Tlingit when they endeavor to bring songs in from other cultures, such as the Chugach or the Eyak. They have to rearrange and bring them into a Tlingit style, and you can clearly see the distinction that's going on in that. So ultimately, music is part of an organized existence. It's culturally organized in many ways. And for one observer, it's almost paradoxical to try to transcribe Aboriginal music. What we're looking at is only a song, not the motivations, not the context, all of those kinds of things. And even in that sense, we have some clear limitations. But I want to just end with this very nice note about the Spaniards' experience with the totality of the context of how Tlingit music in the context of their exchanges led to their life. And so this is following their conclusion, and the Tlingits went back on shore, and they were again dancing and singing following the conclusion of the peace ceremony. So the Spaniards noted the clarity that we discovered on board of the scene taking place in the middle of the night, the cloudless heaven, the beauty of other living things, the composite view of all these things brought about in our hearts a pleasant surprise to those of us who seek the simple pleasures of nature. And Tlingit music, no doubt, was a part of that pleasant experience that they concluded. Thank you very much, and thank you to my colleagues for your listening to us today.
Thank you very much for this enlightening presentation on some amazing research. Are there any questions from the audience?
I just want to thank my brothers and sisters down there. I thought I was going to have to sing an eagle song in response, but I saw that you had a Carbon song up there, so I guess I don't have to do it. But it's just really wonderful, you know, to have this kind of scholarship. And it is great scholarship, and we need to do more of it. And I'm just so happy, you know, that you've done it. But you know, when I was hearing it, it was Hashika, you know, in living life, where we have these ties to our ancestors. And I was very fortunate, you know, to know Judy's mother and grandfather, and actually had the opportunity to dance with them in Yakutat and also in Fairbanks. but I wanted to tell a story about George Ramos, and I want to tell it because I really want to have this recorded somewhere, because I haven't written it. I'm very bad about writing. I write a lot, but I don't publish. And so we came to Yakutat with the Harriman expedition, and a Thunderbird sister came out in a boat to the Harriman boat that I was on. It was a ship, I guess you call it. It was a big one of those big ones. And she warned me that the Yakutat people were very unhappy with the Harriman expedition, and that there was going to be a conflict when we arrived at the A&B hall. And so I thank my sister for forewarning me. And I was kind of like the cultural liaison between the Harriman expedition and the community people where we visited. And anyway, I walked into the A&B and I was really nervous. And the very first thing that happened was that George Ramos started singing and dancing and spreading eagle down around, and it was peace. And right after that, no one could violate that cultural protocol of getting angry. So I always appreciated that about George for saving me, I think, So, and it was just, one of those wonderful things. But also I wanted to note one of the problems that we have when we're trying to integrate our language and culture into these new forums, lectures, and into schools, is that we have to make sure that we maintain the social and spiritual balance. And we've made a lot of mistakes in our attempts, to do this. And one instance was when Jesse Dalton's speech was being used for learning Tlingit. And we immediately had to tell him, stop, unless you make sure that you have, this response, you have to have a eagle response to her words, because our belief is that the spirits come out and go wandering unless you have this response. So I just like to show that it's not only historical, not these things that happened hundreds of years ago, but our culture is still vital and still continuing. But we still need more of this kind of research into our history. And I always say that we don't have a lot of studies on the Tlingit and Haidas because we were so mean. And whereas the Inupiat and Yupik, they have a lot of studies on them.
Well, I never found you mean.
There's a question on the YouTube, very interesting. In the 1700s, were they able to write the lyrics?
There's no text in any of that sheet music, and we're sure that there were vocables or words that were being sung at the same time, but he did not at any point try to put down words, just the sounds of the music.
Sure, someone has a question? Yeah.
Did it sound like any song in your repertoire?
Well, he asked if it sounded like any song in our repertoire, and it was kind of hard unless, that the vocables one sort of sounded familiar with the first versions with just the piano. I couldn't recognize any of it, but just in the whole context of the encounter, it would have had to been some kind of welcome song or some kind of outside song. So if a lot of the songs that were recorded by De Laguna and things like that, they were not, didn't sound like any of the ones. Maybe just the way that De Laguna recorded it, it was kind of hard to tell what song it is, but it would have had to been some kind of welcome song. I don't know if Maria has any comments.
Yeah, I agree with Judy's comments there as well. It again, and with the closing comments of Dr. Langdon, I mean, we're looking at the sheet music that was written like 300 or something years ago from somebody that didn't know the culture of the language, but they were attempting to capture what they were hearing, of course, through another lens. But again, looking at what is currently, what has been recorded since recording technology was invented, and then, of course, hearing contemporary music as well, we definitely hear the clear connection. I mean, there's no, and oftentimes some of my students ask me, how much has Alaska Native music changed, right? And I would say the big change, of course, there was a big renaissance of all traditional Alaska Native music and the big dance festivals like Celebration, Quiana Night, Kiviak and Barrow and Chamai Festival. These are modern, and all these young people, they were at the forefront of saying, we want to be part of a group, we want to sing our songs. And so they led the way to this fantastic renaissance, which is so beautiful. I would say that the changes have been minimal because they were always led by the elders. So there's, of course, contemporary groups creating new genres, and, Byron Nikolai, Bumua. But the traditional music, I think, is still, fairly probably what it sounded like, 300 or 400 years ago.
Well, one of the things we were at a interview tomorrow that will be on Rhonda McBride's program, we got to talking a little bit about and Judy especially, about how hard it is to create harmony and how significant harmony is as a powerful device. And we're really excited that Lori might use these kinds of things within the educational to bring forth this aspect not only of the language but learning the music and bringing this back. And it's kind of like the street corner boys of the Jersey boys singing on the corner, and that has to take hold as something that people enjoy. You don't hear Jersey boys anymore, but at that moment in time, we all love that kind of music. So we're hopeful that the educational program and hearing this and being exposed to it. I want to really thank Maria for when she layered all four of her voices in the four-part harmony that Haenke had identified. It's really quite a wonderful display of her expertise. Thank you so much.
There was another question in the YouTube chat. Are these songs able to be returned to their people?
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to try and attempt to try and bring that back. We'd have to get the only one thing I didn't quite get was the tempo, and I know it's probably needs to be tweaked to see if the tempo would be originally slower or faster, but it's there, and I think we can work with what we have to try and with the young people to try and work on it, to tweak it, to make it work. So maybe Maria wants to say something.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be, well, when this music came forward, I talked to Judy and I said, well, we should get some Yakutat singers to try to record this, because that's certainly, I breaking Tlingit protocols, and apologies to the Yakutat people, because that's not I'm not a descendant of that community. But I think it would be interesting too, because I know the language is pretty strong in Yakutat. I was very impressed at Celebration when the person that was introducing and speaking for the Yakutat group spoke almost entirely in Tlingit. It was just amazing. So perhaps even, being creative and putting some Tlingit text to that might be interesting as well.
So, Irene Lampy, Duckdane. Several years ago, Kathy Reddy, who's no longer with us, she provided, I think, 2 song sheets to me out of the group that you had on the screen. And she invited me to come and listen to her friend, and I forgot her name, play the song sheet on piano. And I listened to it, and it is kind of difficult to hear it the Tlingit way. Because it seemed like there were two different tones going at the same time. And she asked me, do you think you can put some words to it or vocables? And I said, that would be really cool, but I can't make that. I can't replicate that tune from the piano that I'm hearing. It's too complicated for me. I'm not a pianist. So, and I said, besides, I'm not from Yakutat. So I left it alone, and I don't know if she ever contacted you all or anybody from Yakutat. I thought she was going to. But I still have that recording somewhere. It's on a digital device. And I didn't think about this event happening until late last night when I saw it on Facebook. So I'm going to look for that thing and, try to send it to y'all somehow. Yeah, 'cause it's not mine. So thank you.
So Gunnels Cheese for that comment, and also, the idea of like trying to recreate, what was written in these musical transcriptions is there's so much dynamism that comes from a live performance, right? And especially from groups that sing together a lot, like there's just, and that you cannot recreate, right? I mean, that has to legitimately come from that song, that the people that are originally singing that song. So there's a lot, I think, that's lost in the translation, but I think the discussion today just kind of opens the door to, this idea of music being documented by outsiders, being returned to the community, having researchers, Kathy Reddy, other people that have asked questions about this use of harmony, and then this idea of really recreating it, which I do have to give some credit, a lot of credit to Dr. Langdon, who was like, what did this sound like? Maria, what did this sound like?
First one.
He wants to shame me.
No, I want them to just see where you went with it. It just, where's Kai is up here? I can't get in. It's gone. Oh, there he is. You don't want to show it. Okay. I want to go to that drive I just put in. That's the quickest way to do it. Go to the drive.
Well, Kai is pulling that up. I just also want to second that comment. When you said that it was being played on the piano, and it's like, I can't even relate to that. And that is, so when I originally took these, I, used a keyboard and a software program, and it's just like, it just sounds weird. And until you really have it sung by a person, using some vocables, that are commonly found in the northern area of Tlingit country, then it's like, oh, okay. And then that ability when you're singing, of course, it gives that, it gives the song breath. And I want to say it gives the song life, right? So breath is life. Something from a synthesized instrument or a piano just doesn't quite capture it.
I'm going to try to play the synthesizer version of the Canta de Paz that was Maria's first effort. It's got a Gregorian quality to it, but I didn't want you to miss out on it.
Now you know why Judy's eyebrows went up earlier when he was about to play it.
Thank you
SHI for allowing us to we can come together to discuss this, because we've been all just kind of talking to each other on email, and us being able to sit down and actually talk about, you know, questions we have for each other has been really, really a lot of fun.
Well, thank you to our fabulous presenters. That was a very informative and exciting presentation. Our next lecture will be Tuesday, October 4th, same time, 12 p.m. here in the Clan House as well as on YouTube. And it will be a lecture presented on ancestral trauma passed down through DNA. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.